Hello, 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 hello. Good afternoon, good midday. Well, it's midday somewhere, some part of the world. Well, in British Columbia, it is just 30 minutes after noon. Here in Alberta, it is 30 minutes after 1 p.m. So, welcome to another episode of Lunch and Learn Live with me, Shirvington Hannays, the laughing therapist on call. So today, I'm actually going to be looking at some of the reasons why boundaries are violated, why boundaries may not be put in place, and how boundaries become enmeshed. And what are some of the symptoms that you can identify when they are porous boundaries, when they're too rigid boundaries, when there are no boundaries, and when they're inflexible boundaries. And then, of course, is the last day of July 2024, July 31st. I will revisit our theme for the month, which is grace and gratitude, and do a bit of recapping and wrapping up for how we explore grace and gratitude for this month, July 2024. Now, I will start off with boundaries. And what, in my opinion, leads to boundary violation or boundaries not being established? Ultimately, it is my opinion that we have boundaries and boundary violation because of, as Maslow put forward in the hierarchy of needs pyramid, Abraham Maslow, that is, he put forward that the theory of human motivation, we have 5 levels of needs. I think based on these needs, we will tend to interact or be motivated to engage and have relationships to satisfy these needs. So what are the needs in terms of the pyramid? So we're starting at the bottom level. And at the bottom level, we put forward that a need we have so that we can continue to be alive and to live is breathing. That's right. We have to breathe to stay alive. That is a basic physiological need. Then we have food, the need for food, water, sex, sleep. Okay, Shirvington, you need to sleep some more. Yes, Shirvington. And of course, homeostasis, for internally and externally to be in balance. That is what homeostasis basically is, to be in balance. So in the body, so I am drinking a lot. This is my second jug, thermostat, whatever you want to call it, thermos flask, if you want to call it that, of smoothies. And it's peach with banana. Oh, you know I love my smoothies. So this is the second in about 2 hours, because I thought we had a reprieve of the heat wave, but it's back in full steam, but I was prepared for it this time. So I'm able to sleep comfortable because I made the investment. Yeah, so I'm sleeping well and I'm faring well, but I still have the fan to ensure that the air is circulated well. So our physiological needs are basic human needs. It is put forward by Maslow in his theory of human motivation that when those needs, the levels of needs, if the first one or the next level, the first level is not taken care of, is not satisfied, or we don't feel that these needs, all of them on some level, are met, we're not necessarily to be motivated to go for the needs higher above. So with physiological need coming first, which is breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, and excretion. Yes, those are needs that we have. Once those needs are fulfilled, and in our interaction with others to have these needs met, oftentimes we either have what should happen, can happen. What are our boundaries about being able to attain these needs? Sometimes in those relationships, we either do not have clear establishing of limits, boundaries, what are the expectations, what aren't. It reminds me of yesterday going into a meeting. And clearly, the expectations of why we were all there was not established. And right away, for me, a boundary was violated there. Okay? Come on, we need to have a clear understanding, and everyone involved should have a clear understanding of, well, why you're coming there. So I know if I should make a choice to come on air and do my show, the Spirit of a Man Circle show, or go to this meeting to meet the deadline for today. Show up at the meeting, and no, we're not meeting the deadline today. We're going to talk about something for the next year. Well, hello. I'm not expecting to be dedicated. That wasn't the reason why I made a choice to come to the meeting. There, a simple thing like that. Respecting my time, respecting my being able to fulfill my duties. Okay? We talked about time boundaries, emotional, and we have left to deal with material, sexual, but there are 7 common types of boundaries generally: physical, sexual, emotional, and mental, spiritual, financial, and material, time, and there's some non-negotiable boundaries. We're going to explore those non-negotiable boundaries that oftentimes are violated in relationships that are based on very enmeshed way of dealing with no clear of where you start and where I begin, where you stop and where I begin. That technically is what we're talking about when we talk about boundaries. Where do I start in terms of my feelings, my space, physical surrounding, my psychological, my beliefs, my thoughts, my time? So after we have physiological needs met, Abraham Maslow put forward that the next set of needs that is important to each human being and what motivates us to become engaged in life: safety. Physiological, safety. The next set of needs is security of body, security of employment, of our resources, morality, of family, of health, of property. Safety of those things are important needs to us, but they don't become that we are not motivated to be preoccupied or concerned with those needs unless the physiological needs are met. And then, believe it or not, after that, going up on the pyramid, we have love and belonging. So feeling secure in a relationship is more important to us intrinsically. Maslow put forward, that's what motivates us. Feeling secure. Once the physiological needs are met, the next level is feeling secure, security, safety. Then we would look at feeling love, feeling that we belong. But a lot of times in relationships, most times, we have it all mixed up. We think, well, if I love you enough, we're going to be fine. Well, hello. That's what creates the recipe for conflict and interpersonal violence. If a person, their basic needs in terms of physiological needs are met, they want to feel secure in that, in terms of security of body, of employment, of resources, of morality, of family, of their health, and of their property, their belongings. Then what's next? Love and belonging. And love and belonging looks at relationships. That's right. Friends, friendship, and family. Relationships in terms of intimacy or sexual intimacy. Those are then the ones that we consider as important once we feel a sense of safety with our needs of feeling safe, that we have all these things. So a person who do not have certain needs at the level of safety, they may have those basic needs physiologically, would not be so vested, motivated, and interested in love and belonging if those basic, the first two levels of needs aren't met. Above love and belonging, we now have esteem. Esteem, self-esteem, confidence, achievements, respect of others, and feeling respected. Those are needs. Those are needs that motivate us to want to get to the next level of needs on the hierarchy of needs on the pyramid as put forward by Abraham Maslow. So we're at number 4, esteem. And it didn't say here self-esteem only, it said esteem. In terms of self-esteem, confidence, the belief in your worth, the belief that you have what it takes and you have the resources and the know-how to get to the resources to have your needs met. Finally, self-actualization. Unfortunately, not many people even get to hang out at that level from time to time, and even if you go down the pyramid, not many people get to self-actualize. We talk about Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, we talk about the Buddha, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, and we will say, oh, they're self-actualized, but self-actualization means this: morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, your ability to solve problems, being non-judgmental or lacking of prejudice, and acceptance of facts, not subjective opinions and beliefs, facts, things that are objective. The sun, I like to refer to that. We don't have any arguments about the sun's place in our lives and in the world. Nobody argues about the sun very much as to what it is, it's there, when we're not seeing it, that no, it's gone. No, it's just because we're on a sphere, earth, bound, and it moves, and what side we are. And believe it or not, this is the most powerful thing. If you can grasp this about life, it simplifies a lot of things that we tend to stress about. The people in Australia and New Zealand are actually hanging off Earth. They're hanging off. They're at the bottom of this sphere. They're hanging off of the Earth. Get that. And then a lot of things that you stress about and you think that you got it, that's a fact. They're hanging off. But gravity keeps them attached to the Earth, but they're literally hanging off. For those of you around the equator, you're actually walking like this. You're out like this, but you're attached to the Earth. For us here in North America, we've got it good. We're standing on top of the Earth. Profound, eh? Wrap your head around that. And almost magical effect of what that is, and to see the power of the all-encompassing universal essence of gravity. There's a law to that gravity. So, for example, I can't remember who said it. Einstein or something. The law of gravity, whatever goes up, must come down. I can't remember it, so don't quote me in that one. But there's laws to everything in this life. When you can allow yourself to think, wow, the people in New Zealand and those at the bottom of the Earth are hanging off the Earth. But they don't know that because gravity makes it seem as if they're on top of Earth. Profound. So moving along, the importance of setting boundaries. As I said at the beginning of the month when I started and continue to work on boundaries, do you ever feel like you're investing more than your return in relationships with partners, family, friends, and even strangers? Perhaps you feel resentful or that you're taken advantage of. You might feel a little bit annoyed at times, or you might feel outright mistreated. You worry about the disapproval from others if you were to choose to say no or do what is right for you. If you're constantly preoccupied about how others feel, what they will think, and you're not empowered to make an empowered choice by saying no. Empowered no. You're not able to do that easily. There may be a problem with boundaries. And listen to why oftentimes people with boundary that are porous, that are in relationships where they enmesh, entangle, and you don't know where this person starts with their feelings and their thoughts, and everybody's enmeshed. It's because of this oftentimes. Dependency trait. When there's clear dependency traits in people's personality, oftentimes boundary violations happen very easily. And if you look at most relationships where there are interpersonal conflict or violence, it's because of this. People who passively submit to the wishes, wants, and needs of others to the exclusion of their own wishes often will have boundary issues with others. They're not able to say, to see, define, or establish where they start in terms of themselves and where others begin, or where they start and where they end in terms of their thinking and everything about themselves. So yesterday when I found myself in a meeting, clearly there was no clear establishing of certain boundaries. A simple thing like the expectations. Why am I here? My understanding is that we have a deadline for tomorrow and I'm meeting because we're going to do a last minute trying to agree on. But then I'm hearing, no, that's not why we're here. In first, we're not even going to do that anymore. Well, that is fine. We can change our minds about that. But now we're talking about something for 5 years. But I left an important engagement to be here because I thought that was so urgent. So at that point, it's okay for me to say, I'm going to leave. But then boundaries didn't want to look as if I'm the party pooper. I started to leave and then I stayed because we want to be amicable. We want to work together. Well, no. How about boundaries? Dependent traits have fostered engagement into creating and doing things addictively, or creating addictive behaviors or maladaptive behaviors, doing things when it's not the most appropriate for the current situation or moment, but you do it anyway out of habit or a need to please. Chronic fear of interpersonal abandonment and desperately clinging to destructive, yes, you heard me right, destructive relationships. Dependent personality trait, because there's something like dependent personality disorder, where the person's entire behavior meet all these criteria, and that shows they have a personality disorder rooted in the need to please others to their own detriment. Oftentimes, this is the case in interpersonal relationships where we would say the person is needy, or clingy, has a history of being anxious about making decisions without an excessive amount of advice and support outside of themselves from others. lack the ability to trust your own judgment about everyday life decisions, persistently feel worthless and helpless, and believes rejection is inevitable. If you meet any of the criteria here, at least 4 or more, clearly the possibility exists that you have a dependent personality disorder. Need others to assume responsibility and make most major decisions. If those traits show up in one or both parties in a relationship, in a mesh relationship, where there aren't clear boundaries or they're porous and anybody going in and out and checking your phone and checking emails and going into your things without your approval or your permission, that's clearly boundary violations, enmeshment, intertwining. There's no clear way you stop and the other person, oh, we're in love. No. It's enmeshment that is rooted in what is called codependency, where people do not get to experience the natural consequences of their behaviors, their thinking, their actions, their choices, and the consequences of them. So, fear of group situation unless certain of being accepted. So people who are going to in one time, yeah, I had to get over that. That I would deliberately avoid any setting if I didn't feel that I'm going to be comfortable in the setting. Acceptance. And then, of course, chronically feels alienated from others. All these traits clearly indicate that the person have a dependent personality trait or traits that oftentimes is rooted and can lend itself to a dependent personality disorder. We can work, and at some point I can go through this, or if you have any of these and you would like to work in it, this here, I can work with you for long-term goals to recover from this. Oftentimes, people will turn to things like substance, addictive behaviors in addictive relating with others. So long-term goals usually is to recover from whatever maladaptive or addictive behaviors you have in relationships, which reduce the impact of dependent traits to the relationship or to the person. Because one of the worst addiction there is, it's not nicotine addiction. We like to say of the substance related disorders, substance use related disorders, we like to say nicotine is the worst one to beat. Because nicotine can be very addictive. The worst one, in fact, more than nicotine, coffee addiction. Caffeine, yeah. That's worse than even nicotine. But of all addictions, the process addictions, I like to say, addiction to a person is one of the worst that there is, and oftentimes has its basis and foundation why a lot of times people do not leave abusive, toxic, dysfunctional relationships. There's some element of dependence on. And we know if a person is dependent on a substance, we say they have an addiction. So addiction to a person. And I have 2 books that I work with to help people with those addictions. We have How to Break Your Addiction to a Person and Addiction to Love. Those 2 books will set you straight if you have an issue with an addiction to a person or you're addicted to love. And as someone who had to work through that, because early in my life I had a rip-roaring complex, an inferiority complex. People with inferiority complex easily get into relationships that are dysfunctional, toxic, codependent, and there's element of addiction to people. So how do you know? You want to know if you're addicted to a person, because usually when you have an addiction to a person, relationships, okay, are dysfunctional, they're toxic, and you don't have clear boundaries. So when and why love doesn't work, how to break your addiction to a person. Are you unable to leave a love relationship even though it gives you more pain than joy? Your judgment and self-respect tell you to end it, but still, to your dismay, you stay in it. You're addicted to a person, hands down, full stop. Boundaries are enmeshed, and you're addicted to the person. Now, there's an insightful step-by-step guide to break that addiction. Surviving the split up, drawing on dozens of provocative case histories, psychotherapist Howard Halpern explained to you why you can get addicted to a person, why and how you may try to deceive yourself. For example, she loves me. She doesn't know how to show it. Oh, we have different love languages. Shut up. Remember, I'm Shirvington Hannays, the laughing therapist. And here I'm talking about boundaries and how they get easily violated and how sometimes or oftentimes stuck in those relationships because of addiction to a person. In this book, we also look at how to deal with the power, moves, and guilt trips your partner used to hold you. Why strong feelings of jealousy do not mean that you're in love. How to get through agonizing breakup periods without going back. How not to get caught in such a painful relationship again. Because if you didn't learn anything from the last relationship, and if you left in haste with a parachute, and you didn't land and ensure that the parachute was taken care of and put aside, but you still keep walking around with that parachute on your back, you go right back into another relationship because you still have the parachute there and it's attracting to you the very thing that kept you in bondage to the other relationship. Something you sound like if you don't like relationships. No, I actually celebrate relationships. When they work and there's respectful relating in a relationship, I celebrate them. But yes, I got a problem with relationships where there's proper boundaries and where there's elements of dysfunction and toxicity. So very soon on Lunch and Learn Live, I'll be doing a workshop, probably in August, or definitely by September, on how to break your addiction to a person. Yes, join me. Keep track. Of course, we're going to have it, and maybe we'll just do a webinar, or we do with a live studio audience, and we have fun with how to break your addiction to a person. I can talk about this with some element of authority. I once was someone who was deeply addicted to people because of being a people pleaser and a rip-roaring inferiority complex. So I think I'm qualified to talk about how to break your addiction to a person. But no, I did not write this book. Howard Halpern, the best-selling author of Finally Getting It Right, puts forward in how to break your addiction to a person. And then, of course, there is Addiction to Love, Overcoming Obsession and Dependency in Relationships by Susan Peabody. From love that hurts to love that heals. For almost 15 years, Susan's seminal work, Addiction to Love, has helped hundreds of thousands of people overcome the distorted thoughts, feelings, and behaviors associated with love addiction. In this edition, she includes a new preface detailing the process that has been made in the field of love addiction treatment over the last decade. Love addiction manifests itself in many forms, from the fatal attraction type, Fatal Attraction, that movie, Fatal Attraction, with Glenn Close, came onto the scene as an actress. And since then, she has been a very well-respected actress because Fatal Attraction, that kind of love addiction, she embodied it in that movie. Go watch it. You may see elements of yourself in it if you're in a Fatal Attraction type of love addiction. Then we have the Fatal Attraction type obsessive love addicts to the ambivalent love addict who craves love but also fears it. Even when you're not in love, you can be addicted to your partner and caught up in I hate you, don't leave me interaction type of love addiction. A recovering love addict herself, Susan provides an in-depth and easy-to-follow recovery program for people suffering from this painful and often dangerous addiction. Susan also explained how to create a nurturing, safe, and fulfilling relationship once recovery has taken hold. This powerful book, Addiction to Love, one of the most difficult cases to work with. Overcoming obsession. Oftentimes, people who are in love addiction relationships are in obsession with the subject of their so-called love. They think they're in love, but they're in love with the thought of being in love. Those are two, almost three different things. And then dependency in relationship. And as I said earlier, I think this evening I'm going to have to work on the whole wrapping up on grace and gratitude. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a special episode of grace and gratitude and lessons in spiritual truths this evening. So I can wrap up because we're already into half an hour into today's episode of Lunch and Learn Live. And I really want to wrap up here. So I'm going to take another 5 minutes or so and look at codependency symptoms in relationships where boundaries are easily violated, where there aren't clear boundaries. What are some of the behavioral traits of people with boundaries that are enmeshed? And before I can get to codependency symptoms in relationship where there aren't clear boundaries, why we end up there is because of emotional entrapment. That's right, emotional entrapment. And emotional entrapment, freedom from negative thinking and unhealthy emotions in relationships. This book is put forward by Daniel Rutley. Daniel Rutley puts forward that breaking those bonds that bind you in worry, guilt, and anger. Free yourself and live the life that you deserve. Feel stronger and happier. A useful dynamic approach to help you gain control of your emotions, your actions, and ultimately your life. This innovative method is easy to understand and simple to apply, intuitive, and it's insightful. Understand yourself better and love yourself more. Enhance emotional strength and confidence. Conquer anxiety, depression, and anger. When you understand emotional entrapment, which often is the case when they're dysfunctional, toxic relating and relationships where there aren't clear boundaries. Now, quickly, with 5 minutes to go, so we're getting this one in at 40 minutes. Of course, I'm going to do a couple of reels from it, so we'll have a lot of things on TikTok or Instagram and Facebook that we can play around with in bite size. The term codependency has been around for decades. Relationship codependency symptoms. Although it originally applied to spouse of addicts, first called co-alcoholics, researchers revealed that the characteristics of codependence were much more prevalent in the general population. That's right. In many dysfunctional relationships or toxic relationships or relationships where there's enmeshment or there are no clear boundaries and there's constant boundary violation, is because of this. Researchers also found that codependent symptoms got worse if left untreated. The good news is this, that it's reversible. And it's reversible because codependency is characterized by a person belonging to dysfunctional, one-sided relationship where one person relies on the other for meeting nearly all of their emotional and self-esteem needs. Full stop. That there is the foundation, the framework of why oftentimes there are boundary violations, because there are no clear, definable where you start and stop, where I start and stop. And we can have respectful interaction and relating while respecting those clearly defined. Doesn't have to be rigid. Certainly must not be porous. There's a difference, rigid, porous, and non-existent. Finally, it also describes a relationship that enables another person to maintain their irresponsible or addictive or underachieving behavior. That relationship has elements of codependency. Do you expect or expend all of your energy in meeting your partner's needs? Do you feel trapped in your relationship? Are you the one that is constantly making sacrifices in your relationship? If you answer yes to any of those, then you may be in a codependent relationship. At this point, I'll take my exit on an extended 30 minutes of Lunch and Learn. I am your host, Shirvington Hannays, the laughing therapist, Mr. Rice and Peace for the Soul himself. Remember, you can always get more information about me, or you can get in touch with me through www.smahochange.clinic or changeclinic.org. And you can also get me on my larger group therapy productions website at the Laughing Therapist Life Skills Academy. Until next time, I'm Shirvington Hannays. See you. Bye for now.